The words cut through the elegant reception hall like a knife through silk. "Beggars don't belong here. Security, remove this man immediately," my daughter's new husband bellowed, his finger pointed directly at me. The crystal chandeliers seemed to dim, conversations halted mid-sentence, and 200 pairs of eyes turned to stare at the disheveled man standing awkwardly by the gift table. Me, the father of the bride. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. I wasn't always the kind of man who gets thrown out of weddings. 15 years ago, I was Richard Harrington, CEO of Harrington Technologies, with a corner office overlooking Manhattan and a family that lived in a sprawling Connecticut estate. My daughter Emma was my pride and joy, bright, beautiful, and destined for greatness. When she turned 13, I bought her a horse. For her 16th birthday, it was a BMW. When she was accepted to Princeton, I threw a party that cost more than most people's annual salaries. Life was perfect, until it wasn't. The 2008 financial crisis hit my company like a tsunami. While other tech firms recovered, mine sank beneath waves of debt and poor management decisions. I fought to save it, mortgaging everything, working 20-hour days, sleeping on my office couch. But it wasn't enough. Within 18 months, I lost everything. My company, our home, my marriage, and eventually my relationship with Emma. Her mother, Caroline, didn't waste time. She filed for divorce and married a hedge fund manager within a year. Emma, then 19, chose to live with her mother and stepfather. I couldn't blame her. They could provide stability, college tuition, and the lifestyle she was accustomed to. What could I offer? A one-bedroom apartment in Queens and crushing depression. "Dad, I need space," she told me during our last real conversation. "Mom says you're not handling things well, and I can't deal with your problems right now. I have finals coming up." I remember nodding, trying to hide how much her words wounded me. "I understand, sweetheart. Focus on school. We'll reconnect when things settle down." But things never settled down. Caroline poisoned Emma against me, painting me as a failure who couldn't handle life's challenges. Phone calls went unanswered, birthday cards were returned. Eventually, I stopped trying. For 10 years, I watched my daughter's life through social media. I saw her graduate from Princeton, begin her career at a prestigious marketing firm, and start dating Jonathan Prescott, heir to the Prescott publishing fortune. I saw their engagement announcement, a professional photo shoot on a yacht, and felt the familiar ache of being an outsider in my daughter's life. Then, 3 months ago, the invitation arrived. "Emma Harrington and Jonathan Prescott request the honor of your presence." I stared at it for hours, running my fingers over the embossed lettering. Why now, after a decade of silence? Was this an olive branch, a chance to reconcile? Or had Caroline insisted Emma invite me for appearances' sake, to avoid awkward questions about my absence? I called the RSVP number, not Emma's, but a wedding planner's. "Yes, I'll attend," I said simply, not elaborating on my circumstances. What Emma didn't know, what no one knew, was that after hitting rock bottom, I had slowly rebuilt my life. Not to my former glory, but something more meaningful. I had started a small tech consultancy that specialized in helping struggling businesses survive economic downturns. I lived modestly, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and donated most of my profits to homeless shelters and education programs for underprivileged youth. I'd found purpose in helping others avoid my fate, but I still dressed like someone who had known hard times, worn jeans, second-hand shirts, scuffed shoes. Appearances weren't important to me anymore. What mattered was the work. The morning of Emma's wedding, I debated wearing my one suit, navy blue, slightly outdated but presentable. In the end, I decided against it. Emma had invited Richard Harrington, her father. Not some pretend version of him. If we were to reconnect, it would be on honest terms. I arrived at the Prescott estate just as guests were being seated for the ceremony. The security guard at the gate checked my invitation twice. his expression dubious. "You're the bride's father?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Yes," I said simply. He shrugged and waved me through. "Ceremonies in the garden. Reception follows in the main hall." I sat in the back row during the ceremony, tears streaming down my face as Emma walked down the aisle. She was breathtaking, a vision in white satin and lace, her mother's high cheekbones and my stubborn chin forming a perfect blend of beauty and strength. I wanted to stand up to shout, "That's my daughter!" But I remained seated, anonymous, just another guest witnessing the beginning of Emma's new life. After the ceremony, guests migrated to the lavish reception hall. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. Ice sculptures dripped elegantly beside mountains of gourmet food. A string quartet played softly in the corner. The air smelled of money. Old money, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. I hovered near the gift table, unsure where to go. Should I approach Emma, wait for her to notice me? A waiter offered champagne, which I declined. I needed a clear head for whatever came next. "Excuse me, who are you?" The voice came from behind me, sharp and accusatory. I turned to find Jonathan Prescott, my new son-in-law, staring at me with unconcealed disgust. Up close, he looked exactly like his social media photos. Perfectly styled brown hair, expensive suit, cold blue eyes. "I'm Richard Harrington, Emma's father," I said, extending my hand. He didn't take it. Instead, his eyes narrowed as they scanned my appearance. The worn jeans, the button-up shirt with frayed cuffs, the scuffed work boots. "You're claiming to be Emma's father?" His voice rose slightly. "The tech CEO?" "Former CEO," I corrected. "But yes, I'm Emma's father." Jonathan's face flushed with anger. "This is unacceptable. You can't just walk in here looking like this." He gestured to my clothes. "This is a Prescott wedding. We have standards." I kept my voice calm. "My daughter invited me. I doubt that very much." He snapped his fingers and 2 security guards materialized beside him. "This man is trying to crash the wedding. Remove him." That's when he shouted those words that stopped the reception cold. "Beggars don't belong here. Security, remove this man immediately." The security guards grabbed my arms. Guests gasped and murmured. And through the parting crowd I saw Emma, her face pale with shock. "Wait!" Her voice cut through the chaos. "Stop this right now!" She rushed toward us, wedding dress billowing behind her like a sail in the wind. The security guards paused, uncertain. "Jonathan, what are you doing?" Emma demanded. "Protecting our wedding from gate crashers," he replied smoothly. "This person claims to be your father." Emma looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in 10 years. I saw confusion in her eyes, then recognition, then something I couldn't quite identify. Shame. Regret. "He is my father," she said quietly. Jonathan's confidence faltered. "But look at him, Emma, he can't be. Your father was a successful businessman." "Was," I said, past tense. A tall, elegant woman pushed through the crowd. Caroline, my ex-wife, still beautiful at 52, though her face had hardened with years of carefully maintained resentment. "Richard," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "you actually came looking like this." "Hello, Caroline," I replied evenly. "Congratulations on your daughter's wedding." "Our daughter," she corrected automatically, then seemed to regret it. She turned to Jonathan. "Yes, this is Richard, Emma's father, though I'm surprised he had the nerve to show up after abandoning his family." The unfairness of her statement burned, but I held my tongue. This wasn't the time or place. Emma looked between us, confusion evident on her face. "Dad didn't abandon us, Mom. You left him when his business failed." A ripple of interest moved through the watching guests. This wasn't the script they were expecting. Caroline's perfectly made-up face tightened. "Emma, let's discuss this privately." "No," Emma said firmly. "I've spent years believing Dad chose his business over us, that he didn't care enough to stay in touch. That's what you told me." "I protected you from a man who couldn't handle failure," Caroline hissed, "who would have dragged us down with him." Jonathan cleared his throat. Perhaps we should continue the reception. The string quartet is waiting to play for our first dance." But Emma wasn't listening to him. Her eyes were fixed on me. "Why didn't you fight harder to stay in my life?" she asked, her voice breaking slightly. "I tried," I said simply. "You stopped answering my calls. Your mother returned my letters. Eventually, I thought it was what you wanted." "It wasn't," Emma whispered. The moment was interrupted by an older man pushing through the crowd, Jeffrey Prescott, Jonathan's father and CEO of Prescott Publishing. I recognized him from business magazines. "What's going on here?" he demanded. "Jonathan, why is there a scene at your wedding?" "This man claims to be Emma's father," Jonathan explained, gesturing dismissively in my direction. Jeffrey Prescott studied me with shrewd eyes. "Richard Harrington." I nodded, surprised he recognized me. A slow smile spread across his face. "Well, I'll be damned. Do you know who this man is?" he asked the room at large. "This is the founder of Harrington Rescue Consultancy." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The what?" Jonathan asked, looking confused. "The firm that saved Prescott Publishing 3 years ago," his father explained. "When our digital transition was failing and we were hemorrhaging money, this man's team stepped in and completely restructured our approach. Saved us millions." All eyes turned to me. I shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny. "That was your company?" Emma asked, her eyes wide. "It's just a small consultancy," I said. "We help businesses in trouble." "Small?" Jeffrey Prescott laughed. "Your firm has become the go-to for companies in crisis. Half the businesses in this room have probably used your services at some point." He extended his hand to me. "I've wanted to thank you in person for years. Your team worked behind the scenes, and I never met the founder." I shook his hand, acutely aware of how the atmosphere in the room had changed. People were whispering, reassessing, looking at me with new interest. "Wait," Jonathan said, his face flushed with confusion. "If your company is so successful, why do you look like this?" He gestured at my clothes again. I looked him straight in the eye. "Because appearances don't matter to me anymore. I learned the hard way that fancy cars and expensive suits don't define success. What matters is the impact you have on others' lives." Emma stepped closer to me, tears filling her eyes. "Dad, I had no idea. Mom always said you were struggling, living in some tiny apartment, unable to get back on your feet." Caroline at least had the grace to look embarrassed. "That's what I believed, Emma. Richard never corrected me." "You never asked," I replied quietly. "You assumed." Jeffrey Prescott clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Well, this is quite the wedding surprise. The mysterious founder of HRC turns out to be the bride's father." He turned to the gathered guests. "For those who don't know, this man's company specializes in saving failing businesses. They work anonymously, charge reasonable fees, and donate most of their profits to charity. In fact, this very venue," he gestured around the opulent hall, "is part of a foundation that Mr. Harrington helped establish for children of bankrupt families." Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "The Harrington Foundation for Financial Education? That's you?" I nodded, embarrassed by the attention. After what happened to us, I wanted to help others avoid the same fate. "The foundation teaches financial literacy to high school students and provides scholarships to children whose parents have faced bankruptcy." "But you never told me," Emma whispered. "You never asked," I repeated gently. The pain in her eyes was unbearable. 10 years of misunderstandings and missed opportunities hung between us like a physical barrier. Jonathan, still processing this revelation, turned to his father. "You knew about this and didn't tell me?" Jeffrey shrugged. "I knew Harrington was Emma's surname, but I never made the connection. The man's famously private." "Private or not," Jonathan said, his voice sharp with humiliation, "he could have dressed appropriately for my wedding." "Our wedding," Emma corrected quietly, then turned to me. "Dad, why didn't you wear something more formal?" I looked at my daughter, standing in her $1,000 gown, surrounded by opulence and privilege. "Because this is who I am now, Emma. Not the man with the corner office and the mansion, just a guy trying to make a difference. I didn't want to pretend to be someone else, even for your wedding. A silence fell over the room as my words sank in. Then Emma did something that shocked everyone, including me. She stepped forward and hugged me tightly, not caring that her designer dress was pressing against my worn jeans. "I've missed you so much, Dad," she whispered against my shoulder. I wrapped my arms around her, breathing in the scent of her perfume, feeling the warmth of my little girl all grown up. "I've missed you too, sweetheart. Every single day." When she pulled back, her makeup was smeared with tears, but she was smiling. "I want to know everything. About your company, your life, what you've been doing all these years." Jonathan cleared his throat. "Emma, we have 200 guests waiting. The schedule can wait," she finished firmly. "I need time with my father." Caroline stepped forward. "Emma, be reasonable. You can catch up with your father another time. Today is about you and Jonathan." Emma looked between her mother and me, then at the crowd of watching guests. I could see her struggling with the decision. "It's okay," I said gently. "This is your day. We can talk tomorrow." "No," she said, her voice stronger now. "Today is about family. All of my family." She turned to the guests. "Please, enjoy the reception. The bride and groom will join you shortly." Taking my hand, she led me to a small anteroom off the main hall. Jonathan followed, his face a storm of conflicting emotions. Once the door closed behind us, Emma faced me directly. "I need to understand what happened, all of it." So I told them everything. The bankruptcy, the divorce, the depression, the years of rebuilding. How I'd found purpose in helping others, how I'd tried to reach out to Emma countless times before giving up. How I'd tracked her life through social media, proud of every accomplishment but aching to be part of it. "I thought you didn't want me in your life," I finished. "So I found other ways to make a difference." Emma was crying openly now. "Mom told me you were so broken by the bankruptcy that you couldn't handle being around successful people, that you resented us for moving on." "That's not true," I said, careful to keep accusation out of my voice. "I never resented your happiness, Emma. I just wanted to be part of it." Jonathan had been silent throughout my explanation, but now he spoke. "Mr. Harrington, I owe you an apology. My behavior was inexcusable. I studied the young man who had married my daughter. Behind the privileged exterior, I saw genuine regret in his eyes." "We all make mistakes," I said, "especially when protecting the people we love." He nodded, grateful for the olive branch. "Still, I judged you based solely on your appearance. That was wrong of me. Would it help if I told you I did it on purpose?" I asked with a small smile. "What do you mean?" Emma asked. "I wanted to see who you'd become, Emma. If you'd recognize me despite my appearance. If the values I tried to teach you as a child had stayed with you." "And I failed the test," she said quietly. "No," I corrected her. "You didn't see me at first, but when it mattered, you stood up for me. You chose truth over appearances. I'm proud of you for that." She took my hands in hers. "Dad, I want you to be part of my life again. Really part of it, not just an invitation sent out of obligation." "I'd like that very much," I said, my voice thick with emotion. Jonathan straightened his tie, visibly gathering his composure. "Mr. Harrington, would you do us the honor of rejoining the reception, properly this time, as the father of the bride?" I looked down at my worn clothes. "I'm not exactly dressed for the occasion." Emma smiled through her tears. "You're perfect just as you are, Dad, and I want everyone to know it." We returned to the reception hall together, Emma holding my arm proudly. The whispers started immediately, but they were different now. Curious, respectful, even admiring. Jeffrey Prescott approached with 3 champagne flutes. "I think this calls for a toast," he said, handing us each a glass, to unexpected reunions and second chances. As we clinked glasses, I caught Caroline watching us from across the room. Her expression was unreadable, but when our eyes met, she gave a small, reluctant nod. Not forgiveness, exactly, but acknowledgement. It was a start. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of introductions and conversations. Business owners wanted to discuss my work. Friends of Emma's wanted to hear stories from her childhood. Even Jonathan's mother, initially hesitant, warmed to me after hearing about the Foundation's work with financial education for young women. As the evening drew to a close, the DJ announced the father-daughter dance. Emma appeared at my side, her hand extended. "I didn't think I'd get to have this," she whispered as we moved onto the dance floor. "Neither did I admitted, carefully leading her through steps I hadn't practiced in years. "I'm sorry, Dad, for believing the worst, for not reaching out. And I'm sorry for giving up too easily, for not fighting harder to stay in your life." She rested her head against my shoulder, just like she used to do as a little girl. "We wasted so much time." "Then let's not waste any more," I said, holding my daughter close as we danced under the chandeliers, surrounded by the curious, approving eyes of the wedding guests. Later that night, as I prepared to leave, Emma and Jonathan walked me to my car. The same Honda I'd driven for years, parked incongruously among luxury vehicles. "Will you come to brunch tomorrow?" Emma asked. "Before we leave for our honeymoon?" "I'd love to," I said, then hesitated. "Emma, there's something else you should know. The foundation I mentioned for children of bankrupt families." "Yes? I started it with you in mind. The day you graduate college, I opened an account in your name. Every year on your birthday, I've added to it. It's yours whenever you want it, to use for your own children's education, or to help others, or whatever you choose." Her eyes widened. "Dad, you didn't have to do that." "I wanted to, because despite everything, you've always been my daughter, and I've always loved you." She hugged me tightly. "I love you too, Dad." As I drove away from the Prescott estate, I reflected on the day's events. 10 years of separation had ended because of a misunderstanding and a wedding invitation. My daughter was back in my life. My simple clothes and modest car had nearly cost me that reunion, but ultimately revealed what truly mattered. Not the trappings of wealth or the opinions of others, but the connections we build, the differences we make, and the love we share with those who see us, really see us, for who we are. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories just like this one. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever misjudged someone based on their appearance? Did you later regret it? To watch our next story, just click the box appearing on your screen right now. Thank you for listening, and remember, true wealth isn't measured by what's in your wallet, but by who stands beside you when it matters most.